If your children don't respect you, do this to turn it around quickly. They used to look at you like you were their entire world. Every question came your way. Every scraped knee, every proud drawing, every bedtime story. You were their safe place. Now, it feels like they barely hear you. The eye rolls, the attitude, the silence, the blatant disregard for your rules, your presence, sometimes even your love, and it stings more than you ever thought it could. You might be sitting there wondering, where did it all go wrong? Maybe you're playing back old conversations in your head, trying to pinpoint the moment things shifted. Or maybe it wasn't one moment at all. Maybe it was a slow drift. Life got busy, work got stressful, emotions piled up, and before you knew it, your connection frayed into something colder, more distant. Now, every attempt to discipline feels like a power struggle. Every conversation feels like a debate. And worst of all, you're starting to wonder if they even respect you anymore. Here's the truth that no one talks about enough. Every parent hits this wall at some point. It doesn't matter how much you love them, how much you've sacrificed, or how strict or lenient you've been. Kids push back, they test boundaries, and sometimes in the mess of growing up and parenting, respect gets lost in the shuffle. But and this is important, it can be found again. This isn't about getting your child to fear you. This isn't about shouting louder, grounding longer, or lecturing harder. This is about rebuilding something deeper, something real. Respect that's earned, not demanded. Connection that's felt, not forced. I know how tempting it is to throw your hands up, to retreat, to get resentful, or to double down on discipline. But what if there's another way? A smarter, calmer, and far more powerful path back to mutual respect, one where you lead from strength, not struggle. That's exactly what we're diving into. Over the next few moments, we're going to unpack 6 game-changing ways to turn things around. Not overnight, not with magic words, but with intentional actions that actually work. You're not here because you're a bad parent. You're here because you care enough to fight for the relationship, and that's where true respect begins. Let's talk about how to get it back. Number 1, understand the root. Respect is a two-way street. Let's get real right off the bat. You cannot demand what you're not giving. That's not how respect works. And yes, even when it comes to kids, especially when it comes to kids, so many parents confuse respect with obedience. They think if my child listens to me and follows the rules, that means they respect me. But here's the catch. Obedience doesn't always equal respect. Sometimes it's just compliance out of fear, pressure, or habit. And the moment that fear fades or that habit breaks, the real foundation or lack of one is revealed. Respect is deeper. It's not just about doing what you say, it's about valuing you, hearing you, and believing that you see and value them in return. And that kind of respect, it's mutual. You can't build it by raising your voice or tightening the rules. You build it by showing up, consistently, in a way that models the very thing you want to receive. Here's a hard question, one that might sting a little, but it's one you have to ask yourself honestly. Are you respecting them? Not in the I let them stay up late kind of way. I mean, do you respect their feelings, their perspectives, their space, their stage of development? When they say they're frustrated, do you listen or do you shut it down because it sounds like backtalk? When they mess up, do you help them understand why it matters? Or do you just punish and expect blind compliance? Kids are constantly learning how to treat people by watching how they are treated. They're paying attention even when you think they're not. If you roll your eyes at them, they learn to roll their eyes back. If you interrupt them, they learn not to listen. If you raise your voice every time you're upset, they learn that yelling is how we communicate under stress. The opposite is just as true. If you begin to treat your child with consistent dignity, even when they're acting out, If you give them space to feel their feelings without fear, if you hold boundaries without belittling them, they start to internalize that respect is something you give and receive. And over time, they respond in kind. Maybe not instantly, but it sinks in. This doesn't mean you stop being the parent. It doesn't mean you give them free rein or become their best friend. What it does mean is that you model the respect you want to receive, not just when things are going smoothly, but especially when things are messy. So before anything else, before we get into boundaries, strategies, or communication tools, start here. Look in the mirror. Ask yourself, am I modeling the kind of respect I expect from them? If the answer is no, that's not a failure. It's an opportunity. You get to shift. You get to show them what healthy respect looks like in action. And believe me, that kind of leadership, it leaves a lasting impact. Number 2, rebuild connection before correction. This is where a lot of us go wrong. Not out of malice, but out of exhaustion. You see your child acting out, talking back, breaking rules, and your first instinct is to correct them. And hey, it makes sense. You're trying to teach them what's right, and you want to guide them toward better choices. But here's the truth that changes everything. Correction without connection feels like rejection. Imagine this. You've had a terrible day. You're overwhelmed, emotional, maybe even a little lost. And the one person you count on to support you comes in and immediately points out what you're doing wrong. No warmth, no understanding, just critique. How do you react? Defensively, maybe even angrily. You don't feel safe enough to listen. That's exactly what's happening with your child when they feel disconnected from you. The more we try to fix them without feeling them, the more they shut down. It's not about being soft or letting things slide. It's about getting underneath the behavior, because every behavior has a root. And more often than not, that root is an unmet need for connection. You can discipline all you want, take away the phone, ground them, send them to their room. But if they don't feel emotionally safe with you, it won't stick. What sticks is connection. What changes behavior long-term is when a child feels seen, valued, and emotionally close to the person who's guiding them. Let's talk about what this connection actually looks like. It's not about grand gestures or endless time. It's about presence. It's about being available, not just physically, but emotionally. It's those little moments, sitting down for 5 minutes of undivided attention, asking questions without judgment, showing interest in their world without trying to control it. It's also about emotional availability during conflict. When your child is melting down, can you stay regulated enough to hold space for them? Can you help them feel understood, even when they're completely out of line? That doesn't mean excusing the behavior. It means addressing it from a place of empathy and strength, instead of frustration and control. This is where emotional deposits come into play. Think of your relationship with your child like a bank account. Every time you show up with kindness, patience, affection, or interest, you're making a deposit. Every time you criticize, correct, yell, or shame, you're making a withdrawal. If you're constantly making withdrawals without enough deposits, you go into emotional overdraft, and that's when respect collapses. So ask yourself, how's your balance looking? And start small. Even 5 intentional minutes a day can shift the tone. A walk around the block, a quick game, a heartfelt "how's your heart today" instead of "how was school?" They may resist it at first, especially if there's been distance. But if you're consistent, they'll start to soften. And when they do, that's your window. That's when correction lands, not as a punishment, but as guidance from someone they trust. That's when your words carry weight, not because you're the parent and they have to listen, but because they want to. Because they feel seen, because they feel loved. Connection first, correction second. Always. It's not weakness, it's strategy. And it works. Number 3, Create clear boundaries with consistency. It's not, let's clear something up right away. Boundaries are not the enemy of respect. They're the foundation of it. A lot of parents shy away from setting limits because they don't want to seem harsh or control others. Swing the opposite way, setting rules that are strict and ever-changing, hoping that tighter control will force respect. But here's the truth. Kids don't respect chaos, and they don't respect fear. What they do respect is structure, clear, calm, consistent structure. Kids need to know where the lines are. They need to know what's okay, what's not, and most importantly, that those boundaries don't change depending on your mood, the day of the week, or how tired you are. When rules are inconsistent, your child doesn't learn respect. They learn to test you. They start to figure out what they can get away with, depending on how you're feeling. That's not respect. That's survival strategy. Now here's the key. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. When done right, boundaries don't push your child away. They create safety. A child who knows the limits, who understands the consequences, and who feels that those rules are anchored in love rather than control, is a child who feels secure. And security is where respect grows. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice. A healthy boundary is clear, simple, and enforceable. For example, in this house, we speak to each other with kindness. If you choose to yell or insult, the conversation ends, and you'll need to take space. That's a boundary. It's not a threat. It's not a lecture. It's a clear line, paired with a calm consequence. And here's the part most people miss. The power of following through, without emotion. The moment you start yelling your boundary, or getting sucked into a power struggle over it, you've lost the core of what makes it work. Boundaries are strongest when they're calm, consistent, and predictable, like gravity. You don't need to scream about gravity to make it work. It just is. Your child may not like it. They may push back. That's okay. What matters is that you stay steady. Another important piece, involving your child in the process. This doesn't mean letting them make the rules, but it does mean helping them understand the why. When kids understand the purpose behind a boundary, when it's explained with logic, not just because I said so, they're far more likely to respect it. They don't need to agree, but they do need to feel heard. And when they feel heard, they don't feel controlled. They feel guided. One thing to watch out for: don't overdo it. Too many rules can become white noise. Focus on a few core boundaries that reflect your values and your non-negotiables. Keep them simple. Make them make sense. And then, most importantly, be consistent, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Consistency is what builds trust, and trust is what builds respect. So if your child's behavior has been spiraling, or if you feel like you're constantly being tested, take a step back. Not to get tougher, but to get clearer. What are your actual boundaries? Are they consistent? Are they communicated calmly? And do your actions match your words? Because when you set a clear boundary with love and stick to it with calm, your child may resist in the short term, but deep down, they'll start to feel it. You're not trying to control them. You're trying to protect the relationship. That's where respect starts to take root. Number 4, speak their language, communication that builds respect. Let's be honest, sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we say it. You can have all the right intentions, all the wisdom in the world, but if your tone is sharp, your timing is off, or your words land like judgment instead of guidance, your child won't hear you, at least not in the way you want to be heard. Respect and communication are deeply tied together. You can't demand respect in your words if your delivery lacks it. Kids are incredibly perceptive. They pick up on tone faster than adults do. You can say, "I love you," 100 times. But if the majority of your communication sounds like criticism, they'll walk away remembering that instead. This doesn't mean you need to sugarcoat everything. It means you need to become intentional. Every time you talk to your child, especially in tough moments, you're either building a bridge or building a wall. There's no neutral ground. Let's start with tone. Think about how your voice sounds when you're upset. Is it sharp, dismissive, overpowering? That tone might get your child's attention, but it won't get their respect. It triggers defensiveness, not cooperation. Now, that doesn't mean you have to talk like a robot or whisper your way through conflict. It means learning how to be firm without being aggressive, direct without being disrespectful. Timing matters too. You can't have a productive conversation when emotions are running high, yours or theirs. If your child is angry, or if you're angry, it's not the time to lecture. It's the time to breathe, step back, and wait until both sides can show up with some calm. Respectful communication can't happen in chaos. It needs space. It needs patience. And then there's word choice. This is where the real magic happens. The words you use can either open your child up or shut them down. If your language is filled with "you never," or "why can't you just," or "what's wrong with you," you're not correcting behavior, you're attacking identity. And once a child feels attacked, they stop listening and start defending. Every time. Instead, try language that invites reflection and collaboration. I noticed. Instead, "you always," or "help me understand what happened." Instead, "what were you thinking?" One powerful technique. The "I understand" and approach. For example, "I understand you're frustrated, and we still need to talk about how you handled that." It validates their feelings without excusing poor behavior. It shows empathy without losing authority. Active listening plays a huge role here too. Most of us listen to respond, not to understand. But when your child feels like you're really listening, not just waiting for your turn to talk, something shifts. Their guard goes down, their respect goes up. Try this. When they talk, pause, repeat back what you heard. Ask if you got it right. Watch how that simple act makes them feel seen. And when they feel seen, they start to listen in return. Here's the thing. Kids don't learn respectful communication just because we tell them to use their manners. They learn it by watching how we talk to them when we're upset. When they see you stay calm under pressure, when they hear you communicate boundaries with love instead of fear, they learn. They might not always show it right away, but they absorb it. And over time, they reflect. So if respect is slipping in your household, look at the communication first. What's the tone? What's the timing? What's the language? And most importantly, are you speaking in a way that invites respect? Because once your child feels that respect in your voice, especially when they expect frustration or disapproval, they start to respond differently. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. And when your words start building connection instead of tearing it down, that's when real change begins. Number 5, show up as the leader, not the boss. There's a huge difference between being the boss of your home and being the leader of it. A boss demands. A boss controls. A boss says, "Do it because I said so." But a leader earns influence. A leader models the behavior they want to see. A leader says, "Follow me, not because you fear me, but because you trust me." Let's sit with that for a second. It's easy, almost automatic, to fall into boss mode as a parent. You're juggling a million things. You're tired, stressed, and trying to hold it all together. So when your child starts pushing back, your instinct might be to push harder, to clamp down with rules and consequences, to assert your authority and force respect. But what usually happens? They push back harder. They tune you out. A power struggle escalates. And suddenly, no one's really in charge. Not in a healthy way anyway. Being a leader doesn't mean giving up control. It means shifting how you use your control. True leadership starts with self-leadership, showing your child what it looks like to regulate your emotions, stay grounded and communicate with clarity and calm, even when things get heated. You've probably heard this before, but it's worth repeating. Kids don't do what we say, they do what we show. If you lose it every time something goes wrong, they learn to do the same. If you dish out disrespect in the name of discipline, they mirror that energy right back. But when they see you take a deep breath instead of snapping, when they watch you apologize after a mistake, when they experience your consistency and calm under pressure, that's when you start to lead. And here's where it gets powerful. Leadership doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. A leader owns their mistakes. A leader goes first. You want your child to take responsibility for their actions? Model it. You want your child to treat people with respect, even when they're frustrated? Model it. You want them to learn emotional maturity, accountability, compassion, and resilience? Model every single one. Now let's talk about the emotional climate you create. When you walk into the room, do things get more tense or more calm? Do you bring safety or stress? Kids naturally follow someone they feel safe with, not just physically, but emotionally. If every interaction feels like a power struggle or a performance review, they won't trust you with their thoughts, their mistakes, or their truth. But when they feel seen, understood, and safe, even in discipline, they start looking to you not as a boss to resist, but as a leader to follow. There's also strength in vulnerability. This might feel counterintuitive, but it's one of the most powerful tools in your toolbox. Saying, "I didn't handle that well, I'm sorry, let's try again," doesn't make you weak. It makes you trustworthy. It shows your child that growth is allowed in your home, even for you. And once they see that, it gives them permission to grow too. Your authority doesn't come from control. It comes from credibility, from the consistency of your actions, from the alignment between your values and your behavior, from your ability to stay grounded when they can't. When you show up that way, over and over again, you shift the dynamic. They stop seeing you as someone to rebel against and start seeing you as someone to learn from. So ask yourself this: are you leading your home or managing it? Are you showing up in a way that invites respect or demands it? Are you modeling the kind of behavior you expect, or are you asking for things you don't demonstrate? Leadership takes work, it takes humility, but it also builds something that no punishment, no lecture, no raised voice ever could: influence. And influence, real, earned influence, lasts a lifetime. That's how you shift from power struggles to powerful connection. That's how you lead your child back into respecting you, by leading yourself first. Number 6, repair the past, rebuild the future. Sometimes the hardest part of parenting is admitting when things have already gone off track. Maybe it didn't start that way. Maybe you had good rhythms, strong connection, mutual respect, but somewhere along the line, the trust broke down. Maybe you reacted too harshly in moments of stress. Maybe they shut you out, and you didn't know how to reach back in. Maybe life just got loud, and the relationship got quiet. But here's the most important truth you need to hold on to. It's never too late to rebuild. Yes, the past may have been messy, but healing is always an option. And more often than not, repairing the relationship is the very thing that reopens the door to respect. Let's talk about what real repair looks like. It doesn't start with demanding better behavior. It doesn't start with reminding your child of everything they've done wrong. It starts with your willingness to step into the discomfort and take responsibility for the moments you didn't show up as your best self. This is where your ego might want to fight you. You might hear that voice say, "But they're the one who disrespected me. I'm the parent." And yes, you deserve respect. You deserve to be heard and valued. But rebuilding respect starts with modeling humility. When your child sees you own your part, they start to trust that it's safe to own theirs. When they see you lead with vulnerability, they start to believe that change is possible. So how do you do that? You start with a real apology. Not a sorry you feel that way, but a true, grounded, responsible apology. One that says, I've been thinking about how things have felt between us lately, and I realize I haven't always handled things the best way. I've raised my voice too much. I've been too quick to punish and too slow to listen. I want to do better, not just to get things back on track, but because you matter to me. That moment, that ownership, can begin to melt years of tension. It won't fix everything overnight, but it tells your child, this relationship matters enough for me to change too. That's powerful. From there you rebuild the future one intentional moment at a time, one respectful conversation, one boundary held with love, one difficult talk handled with grace. Instead of anger, one shared laugh, one open door. These moments are like bricks, small but strong when layered consistently. And sometimes, rebuilding needs structure. If the distance between you and your child feels wide, bring in tools that create togetherness. Try family meetings where everyone gets a say. Create agreements instead of just rules. Share your why behind the boundaries you set. Let them be a part of the conversation. Not because you're handing over control, but because you're investing in the relationship. You can also create new shared rituals. It doesn't have to be big. A weekly walk, a movie night, a 10-minute check-in at bedtime. Little things that remind your child, we're on the same team, that you're not just the enforcer of rules, you're their guide, their support, and ultimately their safe place. And here's the key to rebuilding. Stay the course. Your child might resist. They might not believe the change is real right away. They might test you to see if you'll slip back into old patterns. That's normal. That's human. But if you stay consistent, if you keep showing up with steady love, clear boundaries, and real listening, the walls will start to come down. Respect doesn't just grow in moments of peace. It grows in moments of repair. It grows when your child sees that even when things get hard, especially when things get hard, you don't give up on them. You lean in. So if you're carrying the weight of a strained relationship, if you've been replaying the fights, the shutdowns, the silence, hear this. You don't have to stay stuck there. You have the power to rebuild. Not just authority, but connection. Not just control, but trust. And through that trust, you'll find the respect you've been longing for. Your past with your child may be complicated, but your future is unwritten. Start where you are, lead with love, and begin again. Conclusion. Respect starts with you. Let's bring it all home. You came here because something didn't feel right, because the tension in your home has grown too heavy, because the child you love, more than anything, is pulling away, pushing boundaries, or flat out ignoring your voice. And you're tired, maybe even heartbroken, wondering how you got here and how to get back. But now, hopefully, you see something different. You see that respect isn't about control. It's not about yelling louder, grounding harder, or threatening more. It's not about fear-based authority. It's about connection. It's about emotional leadership. It's about choosing the kind of influence that lasts far beyond childhood, the kind that shapes who your child becomes. And that kind of respect, it always starts with you. When you model what it means to regulate your emotions, they learn that strength isn't found in shouting, but in staying calm under fire. When you shift from commanding to connecting, they learn that love is not something you earn, but something you come home to. When you apologize for your own mistakes, they learn that growth is allowed and perfection isn't the goal. When you set clear, consistent boundaries, they learn that limits are not punishment, but protection. And when you start leading your home with intentional love, thoughtful discipline, and emotional presence, they stop seeing you as someone they have to listen to and start seeing you as someone they want to follow. Here's the part no one tells you. You can change everything. Even if it's been broken for a long time, respect can be rebuilt. Connection can be repaired. But it won't happen by chance. It happens by choice. Daily choices. Humble ones. Hard ones. Brave ones. So what now? Now you breathe. You reflect. You reset. You pick one thing. Just one. From everything we've walked through. Maybe it's speaking with more empathy. Maybe it's setting a clearer boundary. Maybe it's sitting down and saying, "I'm sorry. I want us to do better." You won't get it perfect. You won't always get it right. But if you stay committed, if you stay consistent, and if you keep leading with respect, even when it's not returned right away, the shift will happen. They'll feel it. They'll trust it. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, they'll look at you with the same eyes they once did. Eyes that don't just see a parent with authority, but a person they deeply respect. Start there. Start now. You've got this.